Story 1. The Creepy Host Who Never Left. In 2018, a young couple, Emma and Jake, decided to take a romantic getaway to a secluded cabin in upstate New York. They found a quaint, rustic Airbnb listed as a private, off-the-grid retreat deep in the woods. The photos showed a charming log cabin with vintage decor, surrounded by nothing but nature, perfect for their much-needed escape from city life. The host, Greg, had great reviews, though some mentioned his enthusiasm could be a little overbearing. Nevertheless, Emma and Jake thought nothing of it and booked the place for 3 nights. After a long drive, they arrived at the cabin late in the afternoon. Greg was there to greet them, just as expected. He seemed nice enough, middle-aged, friendly, and very eager to show them around, perhaps a bit too eager. He walked them through the cabin, pointing out the features. At first, they appreciated the effort, but as he lingered, his presence began to feel uncomfortable. He explained how to work the wood stove and where to find the extra blankets, but then he started talking about the history of the cabin and his family's long connection to the area in detail that wasn't really necessary. Finally, after what felt like an hour, he left, but not before reminding them that he lived just a few miles away and could stop by if they needed anything. As soon as he drove away, Emma and Jake tried to shake off the strange vibe and settled in for the night. However, their sense of discomfort returned quickly. Around 11 p.m., as they were sitting by the fireplace, they heard footsteps on the porch. Their first thought was that Greg had returned for some reason. Jake opened the door, expecting to see their host, but no one was there. They dismissed it as a trick of the wind or animals in the woods. A few hours later, Emma woke up to the sound of creaking floorboards. She shook Jake awake, whispering that she was sure someone was inside the cabin. Jake, groggy and skeptical, got up and checked every room but found nothing. Just as they were about to settle back into bed, they both heard the front door slowly creak open. They froze. Jake grabbed the nearest heavy object, a fire poker, and cautiously approached the door. No one was outside, but something felt off. They locked the door, made sure all the windows were secure, and tried to go back to sleep. The next morning, they noticed something chilling. Footprints in the snow leading from the woods to the front door, and then around the side of the cabin, where they stopped at a small window. The same window they had slept next to all night. Emma wanted to leave immediately, but Jake insisted it must have been Greg checking up on them. They confronted him via text, asking if he had come by late at night. His response was unnerving. "I never came back last night. But I did say I live close. I like to keep an eye on my guests, just in case. You can never be too safe out here in the woods." The couple packed up and left, cutting their trip short. Later, they learned that some of Greg's previous guests had reported similar experiences. Creepy noises, sightings of a shadowy figure outside the cabin at night, and a feeling of being watched. Airbnb eventually removed his listing after enough complaints piled up. Story 2. The Basement That Should Have Stayed Locked. In 2020, Angela, a 25-year-old teacher, decided to spend a weekend in a small town near the Appalachian Mountains. She found a charming 2-bedroom Airbnb that was perfect for her needs, affordable, cozy, and located near hiking trails. The host, Samantha, had stellar reviews, and the property looked immaculate from the photos. When Angela arrived, everything was as expected. The house was quaint, decorated with antique furniture, and had a lovely yard. However, as she walked through the house, she noticed one odd thing: a door in the hallway that was locked. It was unusual, but many Airbnbs have areas that are off limits, usually for storage. She didn't think much of it. That night, after a day of hiking, Angela came back to the house exhausted and settled in for a peaceful evening. As she was getting ready for bed, she heard a strange noise. Something like shuffling or scraping coming from inside the house. It seemed to be coming from behind the locked door. Her heart raced. She stood frozen, listening intently. The noise stopped after a few moments, and she chalked it up to the house settling. But an hour later, as she was drifting off to sleep, the noise returned, louder this time. It sounded like someone moving furniture. Angela, terrified, tiptoed out of bed and approached the door. She pressed her ear against it and could hear faint breathing on the other side. Panicked, She ran back to her room, locked the door, and called the host, Samantha. Samantha seemed surprised and insisted that no one should be in the house but her. Angela asked if someone else had access, but Samantha assured her that wasn't possible. That night, Angela didn't sleep. She left early the next morning, unable to shake the feeling that something was very wrong. A few days later, she received a message from Samantha, apologizing profusely. She explained that the locked door led to an unfinished basement that hadn't been used in years. However, Samantha had discovered that someone had been breaking into the basement and squatting there for some time, sneaking in through a small window that was hidden from view. The noises Angela heard were the intruder moving around at night, likely startled by her presence. The listing was taken down after this disturbing revelation, and Angela swore off staying in Airbnb rentals for good. Story 3. The Poltergeist House. In 2019, a group of friends from Los Angeles decided to take a road trip to New Orleans. They rented a large, historic home in the French Quarter through Airbnb. The house was stunning. High ceilings, antique furniture, and a distinct southern charm. The host, a woman named Marie, mentioned that the house had a lot of history, but nothing could have prepared the group for what would unfold. The first night was relatively uneventful. However, by the second night, strange things started happening. While everyone was in the living room playing cards, they heard a loud crash from the kitchen. When they went to investigate, they found all the cabinets wide open, with dishes scattered across the floor. No one had been in the kitchen, and the windows were all closed. Unnerved but curious, they laughed it off as a weird coincidence, maybe the result of an uneven floor or a gust of wind. But things quickly escalated. Throughout the night, they heard footsteps upstairs, though none of them had gone up there. One of the friends, Sarah, claimed she saw a figure standing in the doorway of her bedroom when she woke up in the middle of the night. The others brushed off her fears, teasing her about watching too many ghost shows. On the third night, the group woke up to the sound of music playing from an old record player in the parlor. No one had turned it on, and the record spinning was one none of them recognized. As they gathered in the hallway, trying to make sense of what was happening, they all heard a whisper, faint but clear, saying, "Get out." That was enough for the group. They packed their bags and left the house immediately, opting to check into a hotel for the remainder of their trip. When they told Marie about their experiences, she was unsurprised. She explained that several previous guests had reported similar paranormal activity. The house, she admitted, had a dark history. Multiple families had lived there over the centuries, and several mysterious deaths had occurred on the property. Despite this, Marie kept the listing active, believing the haunted reputation made the property more interesting. But for the group of friends, it was an experience they would never forget and never want to relive. These stories serve as a reminder that while Airbnb offers a unique way to travel, there's always the potential for the unexpected, whether it's human, supernatural, or something in between. Whether you're planning a quiet retreat in the woods or a fun getaway with friends, be mindful of the hidden stories behind the walls of your temporary home.